In the last game of OPO5 Locals, we're playing against the new Yuta leader, the one that gets so much film value by being able to just reveal cards off the top, get aggressive, fill the board. Now, my opponent here is relatively new to the deck, so there were some kind of plays that maybe a lot of you may not agree with, but let's just get to the games. Let's get to some milling. Starting things off, my opponent plays one Dawn and passes. I get to start off with the Kaya and do some filtering. So Deathwink and some of my cards are just going to be, cards like that are going to be not as useful there. I actually get rid of the Gavel because I'm like, okay, I think like in this matchup that's going to be able to build the board relatively well. I do want to be able to counter out. I play myself a Rubber Band there just to mill one off the attack, which is fine. And then at this point, what I'm going to be able to do here is really just set up a pretty good way to just counter out a lot of the things that they're going to do. I can bounce some things with the Brick Fist, maybe if I need to bounce my own Kaya, but the double Mellow is honestly going to be pretty clutch for me, I think. So they're going to play out some of their cards here, allowing them to, this is like the film value. They've essentially paid like 4 Dawn for 7 Dawn worth of stuff, and then they're going to attach a Dawn. They're going to be able to look through and continue the pressure. This deck is honestly so good. The Yuta deck just gets so much value. They're drawing so many cards, and then I mill over some cards. I go to 6 Dawn. I play myself a Mr. 1, recur a Gavel, and just continue the countering out Storm from there. I'm at exactly 5 Dawn, and that's going to be allow me to kind of Gavel, Mellow, Gavel. And as they fill their board and continue to look for more cards that are going to be extremely pressureful here, they're thinking, okay, they're kind of, letting me know live here. They're thinking like, okay, I don't really want to attack, use up some of your cards. I want to build a board and maybe go for some alpha swings, right? Go for some big swings. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty fair. That's a solid plan. That's one way to approach the matchup here. But ultimately, I think they probably should have just been kind of continuing to attack me just to use up my resources. But honestly, I don't hate their plan. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I find myself another Gavel from hand just to pitch as many as possible. And ultimately, I think this was a bit of a mistake. I had to go Gavel, pitch, Gavel here. I should have gotten just a Rubber Band with the Mr. 1. I wasn't thinking through the whole situation. I thought I was still at like 4 or less cards to enable the Mellows, but and then I'm like, oh, whatever. Okay. I misused my Dawn here, just counted wrong. So I was reading through some of their stuff. They're like, okay, they're going to get some Nami attack triggers. They're going to go the Yuta swing, and they're going to continue to kind of use up some of the cards that I have. So, they whiff off that. That's great. I always love to see a whiff. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm not using that card. I have to go Gavel, pitch, Gavel, mill over 2 cards. Then I'm going to go kind of Love Mellow to draw a card and then pass the turn from there. And at that point, they're thinking like, do I attack? Do I go in for more? What do I attach to? And they're ultimately going to swing in that way. That's fine. I'm going to kind of draw another card there. I find myself with double Zeph, which isn't ideal. They're going to restand by discarding to the Yuta ability. I'm going to untap to 10 Dawn, draw 2 cards off the peel off, and I'm forced to kind of make these like rash decisions. I'm like, okay, I have to play the Zeph here to get rid of the 2 Impel Downs that I just drew, by the way. So I'm going to pay 1, draw 2, discard 2 with the Kaya. That leaves me only with 1 Dawn. I had to make that desperate move just to like really like take advantage of my hand. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm like relatively a good ways through my deck. If you look at my deck right now, I'm like around 25 or less cards, around 20 cards. I can afford to take some hits. If some of those triggers work out for me, then I can ultimately use that to my favor to draw and then just go through my deck and win in the late game. They play themselves a Kid here, which is going to be a great way to actually just stop my Zeph. And that's what they're kind of holding it for. So that's going to be good. So they're going to, attach the 1 Dawn, make sure that my Zeph can't, kind of swing over top. And, that's smart. I'm going to counter out with, 1 attack with the Rubber Band there. And at this point, they're going to tap that out, play out another 3-cost card. And this is where I was like, they should have done some more attacking here. They definitely they had some hits here that didn't come at me, but hey, I'm, I'll take those freebies where I can. So at this point I'm counting out, I believe it was like 17 or 18 cards I was counting at that point. And I'm like, okay, how do I get through this? Because if they start attacking wide, I did not get punished for tapping out at all. So I think I can get a little bit more aggressive. So I'm going to play the Zeph, mill 2, get the Kaya, play the Kaya, draw 2, discard 2. And I'm going to discard the Apis and leave myself with a Deathwink and a Gavel and kind of Deathwink, Gavel, an extra card and pass the turn. And unfortunately, I can't use my mana perfectly here, so it's going to have to be like Gavel, pitch, then Deathwink, or based on how they're attacking, I might just go, kind of take a hit, then maybe Gavel, Mellow, we'll see. So, they're going to tap down my Kaya, which is kind of interesting here. And then they're probably going to attack into it, which is perfectly fine. If they're going to use up resources just to attack into my characters, that is just kind of that lightning rod away from my Nami leader. So They're going to kind of tap that down, play out, and then Zeph is going to get tapped down as well. Then they're going to swing into the Zeph. Fine. Zeph is dead. That's perfectly fine. And then my other Zeph is going to be kind of lightning rodded into the kid if I go for the attack. So not bad then. Then they're going to play the Law out there. They're going to swing into the Kaya. That's perfectly fine. Let the Kaya die. And then they're thinking how they want to use their Dawn. They're going to then attach the Yuta leader and then go in for an attack. And then they're thinking like how much should they attach? Like how are they going to divide up their Dawn here? And they're going to divide up a bunch of their Dawn here. And then I'm like, oh, wait, like you're going in with, well, first your Nami leader here, but you're going to see what happens here. So I'm going to go Gavel Pitch and then I can Deathwink from there. But at some point they actually do make a bit of a small mistake here. I think it's this turn where they actually use like accidentally like a Nami ability on their Yuta leader. I'm like, whatever. It doesn't ultimately matter. Like we're in locals here. It's fine. You're still learning the deck. I don't care. Like just put them at the bottom and just re-trigger your Yuta leader. So I'm going to Deathwing, draw 2 cards. And, they still have like one more Nami trigger to go off with if they want to. And this is where I'm like, okay, do I counter this? Do I counter with a Apis? Do I counter with a Buggy? And I think ultimately I'm like, all right, I do have a fair amount of Deathwings to still grab. So the Apis, like if I can't counter out with the Apis here, right? Like, or sorry, the Buggy, because then I don't have enough cards drawn to actually make the Apis work. So I have to keep to the Buggy. I'm going to play the Buggy, try and find myself a Deathwing, top 5 cards. I'm really at that end game stage, and I find myself a Deathwing, and I see a Peel-Off. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That Peel-Off is going to help me win this game, especially at 5 life. I'm pretty sure I just confirmed the game at this point. I could take all these hits from their cards, and my triggers, I'm pretty sure, would just win me the game at this point. So I'm thinking, all right, 5 Dawn. What do I make work here? Do I start swinging in? Like, I'm like, all right, so I'm going to swing in at their kind of kid here, just force out some counters, just force out some actions in general, and just pass the turn. That's it. That's all I got. Now, I could have held up more Dawn, obviously, for the Deathwing coming in, but I'm like, all right, might as well get some cards out of their hand. They've been building up a bunch of cards in hand for a while. Just make them sweat a little bit. So they kind of play a card. They're looking for a film type. They find themselves a Zoro film type, and that's perfectly fine. Rearranging their board, I realize if I can kind of counter out this turn here, I win the game. That's it. Like, let's be honest here. I got a Peel-Off in there. I can set that up. The kid is going to swing into the Zeph, and I'm not going to counter out. I just need to save my leader. That's all I need to do. And then they're going to divide all of their Dawn into their characters, and they're thinking like, oh, wait, they still need 1 Dawn to activate for the Nami ability here, but it's ultimately not going to matter. I imagine they start sweating here. So I'm going to just start taking some hits. That's me just bluffing the trigger here. You can't just immediately be putting stuff to your hand anymore. And just look, you got to bluff your triggers as a Nami player. Anyway, I'm going to Gavel, mill over 2 cards, and then the Deathwink is going to pretty much draw me into it. So Deathwink, draw 2 cards, and then I'm going to be able to untap and draw into more. Untap, draw into the Peel-Off, play the Peel-Off, draw 2 cards, play the Zeph, bounce that, mill 1. That's the game right there. So again, a relatively easy matchup, I would say. Definitely there were moments where they could have been a little bit more aggressive, forced more resources out of me. I'll never know what my life triggers are. The game could have played out differently, but hey, that's the game. That's the last game of OP05 Locals before 6. I hope y'all are excited for the new meta game. Let's get it.